Chapter 8 of the Second Geneva Convention, Repression of Abuses and Infractions. Article 50. The high contracting parties undertake to enact any legislation necessary to provide effective penal sanctions for persons committing or ordering to be committed any of the grave breaches on the present convention defined in the following article. Each high contracting party shall be under the obligation to search for persons alleged to have committed or have ordered to be committed such grave breaches, and shall bring such persons, regardless of their nationality, before its own courts. It may also, if it prefers, and in accordance with provisions of its own legislation, hand over such persons for trial to another high contracting party concerned, provided such a high contracting party has made out a prima facie case. I hope you're taking notes. Each high contracting party shall take measures necessary for the support of all acts contrary to the previous. Each high contracting party shall take measures necessary for the suppression of all acts contrary to the provisions of the present convention other than the grave breaches defined in the following article. In all circumstances, the accused persons shall benefit by safeguards of a proper trial and defense, which shall not be less favorable than those provided by Article 105 and those following on the Geneva Convention relative to the treatment of prisoners of war, August 12, 1949. Article 51. Grave breaches, to which the preceding article relates, shall be those involving any of the following acts, if committed against persons or property protected by the convention: willful killing, torture, or inhumane treatment, including biological experiments, willfully causing great suffering or serious injury to body or health, and extensive destruction and appropriation of property not justified by military necessity and carried out unlawfully and wantonly. Article 52. No high contracting party shall be allowed to absolve itself or any other high contracting party of any liability incurred by itself or by another high contracting party in respect to breaches referred to in the preceding article. Article 53. At the request of a party to the conflict, an inquiry shall be instituted in a matter to be decided between the interested party concerning any alleged violation of the convention. If agreements has not been reached concerning the procedure for the inquiry, parties should agree on the choice of an umpire who will decide upon the procedure to be followed. Once the violation has been established, parties to the conflict shall put an end to it and shall repress it with the least possible delay. Final provisions. Article 54. The present convention established in English and French. Both texts are equally authentic. The Swiss Federal Council shall arrange for official translations of the convention to be made in the Russian and Spanish languages. Article 55. The present convention, which bears the date of this day, is open to signatures until February 12, 1950. in the name of the powers represented at the conference which opened at Geneva on April 21st, 1949. Furthermore, by powers not represented at the conference, but which are parties to both the 10th Hague Convention of October 18, 1907, for the adaptation to maritime warfare of the principles of the Geneva Convention of 1906, or to the Geneva Conventions of 1864, 1906, 1929, for the relief of the wounded and sick in armies in the field. Article 59. The present convention shall be ratified as soon as possible. If I could speak, that would help. The present convention shall be ratified as soon as possible, and the ratification shall be deposited at Berne. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right. A record shall be drawn up of the deposits of each instrument of ratification, and certified copies of this record shall be transmitted by Swiss federal councils to all the powers in whose name the convention has been signed, or whose accessions have been notified. Article 57. The present convention shall come into force 6 months after not less than 2 instruments of ratification have been deposited. Thereafter, it shall come into full force for each high contracting party 6 months after the deposit of the instruments of ratification. Article 58. The present convention replaces the 10th Hague Convention of October 18, 1907, for the adaptation to maritime warfare, the principles of the Geneva Convention of 1906 in relations between high contracting parties. Article 59. From the date of its coming into force, it shall be open to any power in whose name the present convention has not been signed to accede to this convention. Article 60. Accessions shall be notified in writing to the Swiss Federal Council and shall take effect 6 months after the date on which they are received. The Swiss Federal Council shall communicate the accessions to all the powers in whose name the convention has been signed, or whose accession has been notified. Article 61. The situations provided for in Articles 2 and 3 give immediate effect to the ratifications deposited and the accessions notified by the parties to the conflict before or after the beginning of hostilities or occupation. The Swiss Federal Council shall communicate by the quickest method any ratification or accessions received from the parties to the conflict. Article 62. Each of the high contracting parties shall be at liberty to denounce the present convention. There's a catch. The denunciation shall be notified in writing to the Swiss Federal Council, which shall transmit it to the governments of all the high contracting parties. The denunciation shall take effect 1 year after the notification thereof has been made to the Swiss Federal Council. However, a denunciation of which the notification has been made at a time when the denouncing power is involved in a conflict shall not take effect until peace has been concluded and until after operations connected with the release and repatriation of the persons protected by the present convention have been terminated. So if you're already engaged in hostilities and you think, well, I'm just gonna withdraw from the convention, you're still bound by the convention until those hostilities completely cease and everybody is sent home. The denunciation shall have effect only in respect of the denunciating power. It shall in no way impair the obligations which the parties to the conflict shall be remain bound to fulfill by virtue the principles of the law of nations as they result from the usages established among civilized people, from the laws of humanity and the dictates of public conscience. Article 63. The Swiss Federal Council shall register the present conventions with the secretaries of the United Nations. The Swiss Federal Council shall also inform the Secretariat of the United Nations of all ratifications, accessions, denunciations received by it with respect to the present convention. In witness whereof the undersigned, having deposited their respective powers, have signed the present convention. Done at Geneva this 12th day of August, 1949, in the English and French languages. The original shall be deposited in the archives of the Swiss Confederation. The Swiss Federal Council shall transmit certified copies thereof to each of the signatory and acceding states. And that concludes the Second Geneva Convention. Take care. May Artemis watch over you, and know that Freya sends her love.